tried making a fun intro and that just really didn't work out. But hey y'all, it's Alex and welcome back to my channel, and today I've got Crayola markers for you. I have probably had all of these markers since I was in elementary school. They've just been around the house forever, and I have no idea where these tiny itty bitty ones came from, but I love them, they're adorable, and I wish I had more colors. But I was going through all of my art supplies and I found these, and I wanted to know, since you can just kind of put water on them to re-wet them, would they work as watercolors? So I decided to put that to the test. I don't know if this is something that a lot of people have done, but it was a fun experiment. Starting off, I really didn't know what I wanted to draw. This was kind of like spur of the moment. I know that I wanted to include a mermaid in there at some point because they're watercolors, and no, I did not draw this in May. I drew this in January, I think. January or February. So it's the last time I was able to film. Anyhow, I first decided to draw this little witch character. Well, more like a waterbender, really. And she's lifting up this this massive mermaid, like a serpent mermaid, over her. And maybe she's trying to capture her for her own dastardly deeds. Maybe this sea witch is causing a whole lot of problems for the people in this girl's town. I don't know what exactly the inspiration here was. It just ended up coming together really cool. So now we're finally getting into using the markers as watercolors. And I find that I don't really use watercolors very much. I do have a bunch of them that I probably should use more often. However, I am very much primarily a marker artist. These, however, behaved very much like my Ecoline watercolors did, the ones that are already liquid and not the marker kind. They do have some nice color, however, you can't get the most vibrant ones because you're having to dilute the pigment down so much. That was probably my only problem with it. It was really easy to, one problem I have with using Crayola markers on their own is they don't really have a lot of color choices, but, I mean, I was able to, just put some marker down on my plastic palette and then work with them from there. They did have the same problem that I have with a lot of colors, is that I start working on a really big area and then I'll move to a different section like I'm probably not supposed to, and they'll dry and I'll have to work really hard to erase the line that they leave. That's just kind of like my problem with watercolors. I don't really like the texture that they leave most of the time, but I think it worked as well as it could have. For this, they don't leave like a chalky texture like really cheap watercolors do, so that was nice, I guess. I filmed this almost right after I did my all pink supplies video, so I just had this swatch sheet lying around. I did have a problem with going outside the lines a little bit, so I used my my Malto marker to be able to cover it up. There are some spots where it's still peeking through, but it ended up working out good enough. One of the problems I had to be sure not to run into with the mermaid inside of the water was I didn't want to use any colors that would react and mix weirdly with the blue. Like, I couldn't go in with yellow for any part of her because otherwise it would have made green, and that's obviously not the color I would have wanted. I figured it would be better to lay down the blue first, because then I wouldn't be wiping my brush across the already laid down pigment and then dragging it outside of where I wanted it. I figured to cover the brunt of the area first. My biggest regret for all of this was trying to use this brown for her skin. It just didn't turn out the right way. It lightened some areas much more than I had originally hoped for, and I don't think it's a very good skin tone in the first place. That's probably the one downfall of using these, is that it was really hard for me to mix a skin tone, but I lived, I think. There were certain points that I went in with just the marker, like with the eyes. I wanted them to be really dark. One thing I also really like about the colors that I ended up picking for the separate parts of this piece is the juxtaposition, because the witch down at the bottom has all of these bright, fiery colors, so you wouldn't expect that she'd be a water mage or a water bender, a water witch, whatever you want to call her. And then we have the mermaid up above. She's very cool toned, and that was mostly so I didn't have to deal with weird color mixing, but I think it's a good design choice for both of the characters being on this page together. My favorite color was this teal. Even just the marker on its own, I love this color, so I naturally had to use it to do the hair. I think if I were ever going to use these watercolors again, I'd have to work out how exactly I get the most pigment out of them, because there were a lot of points where I was like, man, I really want this to go darker, but I can't exactly make it go darker because I'm diluting away all the pigment. And I don't want to like squeeze out my markers to be able to get it to be pigmented. So that's a line that you kind of have to walk on. And I feel like I could have been a little better about shadows and highlights in this, but there was only so much I could cover with this Malto marker. I actually did switch to a whiteout pen, but it didn't really help much more. You guys enjoyed watching me use Crayola markers as watercolors, and if you guys happen to try this out for yourself, I would really like to see your results. If you'd feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button and check me out on my other social media handles. Thanks, and I'll see you all in the next one.